Greetings, Patrick here. 8 questions with. Welcome to the show. It's a beautiful Thursday night here in southeastern Michigan. We'll be talking with actor, screenwriter, martial artist, and author Kenyon Henry. Will be here in about 15 minutes or so. So hopefully everybody's doing well. Just looking around, staying busy today. Paladin's doing fine. Is still begging for the turkey treat, so I know he's doing well. Hopefully everybody here is doing okay as well. I thought I'd go ahead and take this right here and start talking about the calendar because we got a busy week ahead of us, or a busy month or so, and August is starting to fill out as well. Um, so tonight, like I said, we're going to be talking with Kenyon Henry. Saturday, we have the lovely Monique Parent will be here with us at 5 p.m. on Saturday. That's a matinee show, so 5 o'clock will be that will be when that show is. On the 26th, oops, we will be heading over to Ben's channel, Cadaver Club, Ben from the Cadaver Club, and we will be there at 8 o'clock to talk about Speak No Evil 2022. Looking forward to that. I know they remade it Americanized. We're not looking at that one. One of those one they Americanized it, right? So we're not gonna mess around with that one. We're gonna go to the original one. And that one there has a little bit of a dark ending. Those who may have seen it, but it's a good movie. And speaking of good movies, I caught one last night that really surprised me. Before I get back to the calendar, I caught one that surprised me. I put it on my list for dollar theater, and I finally made it up to where I was watching it, and it was called Living Among Us. And holy cow, that was a surprise. Um, I thought the cast was really good. Hey, Russell, thank you so much, sir. Dominic, hey, what's going on, my man? And then there's Anthony. What's going on, Tony? Still no job as of yet. Boy, I thought they were supposed to give you a job after job fair. Oh well, keep going. Um, yeah, so I caught Living Among Us. It was a blind buy I got from the library. Didn't know anything about it. I just knew that I looked at the cast looked pretty enticing. Had William Sadler in it, John Hurd, Thomas Ian Nicholson, Thomas Ian Nicholas, and man, it was good. Wow, I was surprised how really I liked it quite a bit. It was good. Vampire movie, can't go wrong with that. Uh, and I'm like, all right, well, that better, that was entertaining. I just love finding movies like that where you never hear anybody mention it because no one's ever watched it. And then you type it in there and it's like, okay, let me just watch this and see what it's about. And lo and behold, it's great. It was just yeah. Um, Now I'm gonna get ready for our big 200th celebration for Dollar Theater. Uh, well, for 199, we're gonna be watching a concert film. We're gonna be watching Slayer at the Warfield. Hell yeah. Slayer is awesome. It's one of those bands I always wanted to have either go a chance to see them live, or if we could have caught them when they were smaller, maybe the Edge. I know my friend Jimmy had them a few times when he was booking the Stone and the Omni, but we never had a chance for that. I don't think our building could have held it, to tell you the truth. Um, I mean, Slayer's pits are legendary, legendary. You go type in Slayer and look at the mosh pits, and it's just absolutely insane. But boy, oh boy, wouldn't you just want to get into that pit just one time, just to say you did it? Yeah, yeah, that I would. Of course, I make sure there was somebody with me that could the glasses and wallet and stuff like that, because your hat, because you're gonna get crushed. But the thing is with Slayer pits, if you really look at Slayer pits, you never see anybody on the ground. There's nobody there that's like, no, because your partner who you don't even know is making sure you're on your feet and going. Those are the best pits, man. The pits that understand the rule of the pit, which is nobody gets hurt in the pit. That's the thing. You have a great time. You can bounce off each other, pogo off each other, but you don't hit anybody. Those are the most successful pits and the most fun. But I'm looking forward to seeing Slayer at the Warfield. I, the Warfield was not that much bigger than the Edge. I think the Warfield held about 2,000. I think they're maybe even twice as big as we were. Um, my God, I'm just can't wait to see them tear up the Warfield, Bill Graham's Warfield. So that's going to be 199, and then for 200, we'll be covering The Rocketeer. That will be our 200th movie that we've done on Dollar Theater. All the movies pretty much have all come straight from the library. Pretty much. I would say 75% to 80% of the movies I reviewed have come from the library. We got a new voters edition up. Chasing Sleep was the big winner this week. Chasing Sleep. I have never seen that movie, but I'm a huge Jeff Daniels fan. So I put it up there because I was just curious to see kind of reaction we get. I didn't think anybody would vote for it because I know who Jeff Daniels is, but I've never seen the movie. And lo and behold, eh, it won. It won. And over two other movies that had much bigger names, but it won. So I said, okay, well, I guess we're chasing sleep, which is something I do on a regular basis. So, so we got two new movies out. To vote for. They're on a poll. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go watch that. I got a copy of the DVD at the library, which is why it made it. So far, and I put the new movies up too. We kept we because they tied for second. So you can vote for Poker Night. You can vote for The Messengers. Third week in a row, it's finished second. Third week in a row. Someone pushed this over the top so we can watch it. Then I put in Primate because I got a lot of people wanted me to review this. So I said, well, let them vote for it. So I got Primate. And then the last movie I put up, just because, and I didn't think I didn't know how well it would do. I thought people would just look at that and like, really? But lo and behold, it's absolutely whipping that candy ass, and that's Spaceballs from 1987. So yes, we are looking forward to watching Spaceballs if given a chance. I actually thought Primates was going to run away with this week. It still might because I just put the poll up, but so far Spaceballs is shutting them out. It's winning handily, 75% of the vote already. This might be a one-sided battle, but not the one I was expecting. All right. Oh, back to the calendar because you guys want to know about this. So next week's shows are next Tuesday on the 28th. We have filmmaker Robert Parham will be here with us. That's going to be a really fun show. I really hope you guys can make it out for that one. We have Matt Burns will be here. He is not only is he a filmmaker, but he recently got hired to help run a distributing label. And so he's going to be doing both. He's making movies and he's going to be distributing. So that's going to be interesting. I want to see how he's balancing the plates. On the 30th, we have Timothy Chismar. He'll be here, and I'm going to save his story for a little later because it's interesting, and I really want to hear how he explains it. This is going to be a lot of fun. August rolls around, and yes, we are up and at him. August 1st, Saturday, we have another matinee show. It'll be the return of Tatiana Neva will be here with us. She's been with us a couple of times before. This time we're going to be talking about her movie, Prey of Wrath, that she co-starred with Cynthia Rothrock in. Her and Cynthia Rothrock co-star in this movie. I watched the movie. I'm going to be rewatching it, and I think Tatiana did really, really well. I think she did. I think she kicked ass. Fun movie, fun, absolutely popcorn movie. Exactly when I sat down and watched it, I'm just like, plenty of hell yeah moments. She looks fantastic, and looking forward to talking with her about this and some other projects that she may have up her sleeve. Um, on August 4th, Tuesday, we have Ray Starr. He is a live musician. He's also known as a rock psychic. I have no idea what that is. I don't, does that mean that when they play Stairway to Heaven, he can see the future? I don't know. We don't know, but we're gonna have fun finding out, right? Uh, Cynthia Rothrock is a great actress. I am so with you, Russell. I think, man, when you talk about actors whose careers were cheated, like cheated, she has to be like in the top 10. She should have been such a bigger star than what she was. And I just don't. I never understood why she never broke. Never could never understand it. She's she's beautiful. She's kick ass. Um, she's got a good. You know what? She's got a fine speaking voice too. I mean, that's the only thing I could think of was that her voice. But that's bullshit because look at how many movies. Oh, sorry about that. That's wrong. I'm trying to keep my P's and Q's today. That's wrong because because she can act just as well as anybody. I don't really understand. I just never understand why she. I mean, she's great. She has a great core of fans, but she should have been a household name. Actually, I mean, you think of all the girls. Like you look at the girls that did Charlie's Angels. Really, you're trying to tell me that as much as I love Lucy Liu, but you expect me to watch Drew Barrymore, Lucy Liu, and Cameron Diaz fight martial arts style when you have Cynthia Rothrock behind her? I mean, come on, give me a break, right? And she still can bring the noise. She still can bring the noise. I saw her in Taken from Rio Bravo, and her character score in a western dress. She still scorpion kicked his ass. We laugh. I'm just going like, man, that's just beyond awesome. I'm sorry, but that's just beyond awesome. Um, so let's see. On the 4th, Ray. On the 6th, we have Erica Muse will be here with us on the 6th. On the 7th, we have Scott Hand. He's bringing his boom artist and his cinematographer, Alex and Andrew. And we'll be talking with them on the 12th of August. On the 13th, we're talking with filmmaker Jeremiah Kipp, which I'm very much looking forward to. That is a big one for us here on Eight Questions With. Jeremiah Kipp is the man who directed The Mortuary's Assistant. We got to talk to the screenwriter. Now we get to talk to the director. Now, if we could talk to one of the stars of the show, that'd be really good. And then on the 17th, we'll be talking with Preston and David. Preston, I'm not really sure how to say his last name, so I'm just not going to. But David Heacock will be here with us, and they also represent Brimstone Pictures. And we'll be talking about the studio contaminations going on there, Boneyard Racers. Hopefully by this time when we get to talk to them on the 17th, we might even see a little bit of an update, even though contamination is still kicking butt out there. But we might be able to get a little bit of an update on maybe seeing if Boneyard Racers will be considered for a feature length film, because I think it would be a badass movie if it was. And then on the 18th, we have a filmmaker Salem DeBetta, and she'll be here. And her first name is Salem. Okay, so you know what? August is already legendary. But when you have someone with the first name of Salem, that just pushes it over the top, right? I mean, come on. That's I just saw the name on Salem. That's just because how many of us are how many of us are Sabrina fans like I Uh, it's funny because me and Mr. Dan and Kenny, we were talking about Sabrina, the Teenage Witch, and we are talking about Salem. And then I met a Salem, so I'm pretty tickled about that. And she asked me, says, "Do you have any questions that you're gonna ask?" And I'm going like, "I only just had the one question." It's like, how cool was it that your mom and dad gave you the first name of Salem? How cool is that? Um, all right, and we still got some other stuff on the plate, so we'll see about that as well. Um, so a little bit more about our guest Kenyon Henry. He is also a published writer. When I met about my P's and Q's, he is a Christian writer. He has written several books. He has written at least 10 books. One of them got made into a film. And yeah, he writes Christian fantasy, urban fantasy, which is really cool. I'm looking at the books that he's written. They look just as good as anything on the bookshelves right now. I like the covers. I think the covers are really good. They're really engaging, um, and I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, and I like his attitude about his writing. It's true, man. See, Martial Law with her and David Carradine is good. Yeah, I get bummed out when I think about David Carradine. I get bummed out by how he went out. That's just so bizarre. So bizarre. Uh, has anybody seen the Odyssey yet? I guess I should ask that. Has anybody seen the Odyssey? I still have not seen the Odyssey. I will see it when it comes out for a quarter. So I'll be probably picking up a copy around Christmas. But it's weird because who was I talking to? Oh, I was talking. I think that was yesterday. I think um, it just blows me away because I've been this week. I read that Andy Serkis got in trouble because he's making the new Lord of the Rings movie, and it's an all white cast, and so people were upset because the new Lord of the Rings movie is going to be all white. Okay, so you got those people, and then the Odyssey came out, and now you got all these people are hemming and hawing and slobbering because Christopher Nolan used a diverse cast. You know what I tell these people? Pick up a camera and make your own damn movie. You don't like what you're watching? Go make your own. You don't like it? Make your own. I mean, I complain about some movies, but if I say, oh, I don't like that movie. Well, fine. You can go out there and make one of your own. No one's stopping you. Well, I'm just, you can express your opinion, but God, at least have at least have some intelligence in voicing your opinion. I mean, that's what I say. Um, yes, Kenyon is a screenwriter as well, and he's done a few movies. He also has a background in martial arts. He fought as a member of the WKA. We'll have to find that out. I think it's World Karate Association, WKA Team USA. So I'm not sure if he's still a martial artist or not. He's also a musician. So we might get a little bit of a we might get a little we might get a song or two out of Kenyon tonight. I told him that he'd be welcome to sing a couple of original songs if you'd like to. Yeah, Russell, you're right, man. People are, unfortunately, yeah, that's how it is, right? Um, I just let it go right over my head, you know. as far as that goes. I remember they did the same thing to Alex Proyas when he did Gods of Egypt. He released it, and they're complaining to him. They were complaining that he used a all white cast, and the thing is, though, is he's half Egyptian, um, and and the thing is, though, people real, it's just ridiculous. People always want to fight just to fight. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to that. Oh, all right. It is going to be a different story. It's going to be if they're looking for Gollum. It's the search for Gollum, and it's like I don't have no idea where they got the story at. I think it's between. I want to say it's before the Hobbit. Between the Battle of Five Armies and between that and the Hobbit. I think that's when it's based out of. Which I don't understand because this is just a made up story. This wasn't in the Lord of the Rings, nor was it in the Silmarillion. So it's just, but it is in the bank, right? I just don't know how people are going to react to it. I just don't get it. I mean, and they're reusing everybody before. They're de-aging everybody. That's the thing too. They're de-aging everybody. I mean, you got Ian McKellen on there. He's like 90 years old. It's Gandalf. I just, yeah, I heard. He pinged me. He said, Ghostfoot, we'll be trying to get over there to Ghostfoot. We know that he's going to start at 8:30 tonight. I don't know what he's doing. I think he might be doing paranormal, which I'll just be bummed at. But yeah, he just said that he just said, hey, he just wanted to know if I had a show a week from Friday. I said no, and that's all he said. He says just make sure you don't have one. So yeah, because I think he's going to be talking about Michael's going to be talking about Indianapolis. He could be talking about Indianapolis because he went to the convention down there. Or was it Whorehounds? I think it is. Let's see. Well, that's a tough one for sure, Dominic. But you know what? You can also send. Just remember though. Remember the rule. Always get everything you send. Make sure it's all copyrighted. Never send it in. And make sure it's better. It's better if someone tells you to mail it in. You'll get a better response if you get someone who says, "Hey, I talked to Joe Smith. He said I should send you a copy of my screenplay." Yeah, yeah, 8:30, 8:30. He must. It's got to be. It's got to be Indianapolis tonight because I think he was there all 3 days. I think. I don't know. Yeah, that's what everybody tells us, right? Every time we're on here, and you hear this over and over and over, and even I watch Fred Olin Ray, his channel too. I watch this channel a lot. In fact, I'd love to get him on here. Um, and they always say one thing: just make sure whatever you wrote, make sure you get a copyrighted, way. And that's the reason why a lot of people they don't want your screenplay. They don't want it. If you see somebody at a convention, you go up there and say, "Hey, I want you to take a copy of my screenplay." They'll always tell you no, and the reason why is to protect themselves. It's not that they're being an asshole to you. They're just like they don't want to. They don't want any slim of a chance to to all of a sudden let's say you wrote something about a horse jumping off a bridge, and in his next movie he writes that uh, not knowing what you've written, but you can sit there and say, "Well, you took it from my script," and that's all sorts of legal problems. That's a lot of times. That's a lot of times where you see someone who gets in trouble, they sue over stories because most of the time they're given to the other person unsolicited, and then they claim that that other person took their idea. That's why the first rule about screenplays is never give it to anybody, and never give it to anybody without a copyright. No, no, I do believe he said 8:30. And I'm not sure where my guest is at right now. Oh yeah, I gotta write to that person today. No, it's supposed to be 8:30. 8:30. Yep, yep. So I was reading this yesterday in one of the trade magazines that they're starting I'm not sure if anybody's seeing this or not, but I'm fascinated by it, by the vertical filming. Um, Basically, they want, and I take my phone here for a second, pointing at you guys. So, if you look at my phone, you see it's vertical, right? See, there's horizontal, and now I'm holding it vertical. This is a new thing now that people are filming projects through the vertical. It's a trip, and it's like I I was like, okay, well, I don't. I mean, and I guess they're. Yeah, that's gonna be interesting, man. I'm curious to see how that works, and it sounds like they're doing. I guess like 3 to 5 minute long segments. Now, if you do that about 50 times, you got your full length movie there. It's sort of like a bite-sized soap opera. That's what I'm getting. You'll get a little bit of action, and then you'll come back and see what's next. Now, the only thing about that is that it's going to be a subscription service, so people will have to pay for that. Personally, I don't know about that, especially now when people are unplugging from streaming services and whatnot. I don't necessarily think people are going to be dropping one streaming services just to drop into another one. I think when they drop it, they're dropping it. I don't think they're going to go back. I think a lot of people now are just going back to maybe one. Before having four or five in the house, I think they're just dropping them down to just one. So I think the big ones are going to be, they're going to be the ones fighting it out. Like Paramount Plus or Hulu or Disney Plus, Peacock. I mean, those are Netflix. Those are going to be the ones that are really dogfighting to keep their one subscription. I don't think there's going to be. I think they're saying how more and more people are dropping off the multiple streams, something we've seen before, something we've talked about here before. But then, and the thing is, though, they never release their numbers. Streaming services never release their numbers. Um, but I do think that we are seeing that. We are going to be seeing that soon. If people want change, the best way to enforce it is with your wallet. If you don't buy it And if you don't watch it, you don't watch the advertisements, what can they do? If they don't, I don't want to watch it. I don't want to watch that. I'm not going to support that advertiser. And if you do that, well, they have to change their business plan. I mean, if enough people said yes at one point, now we need people to say no at the other. Okay, I have no idea where my guest is at, so needless to say, I'd already had this go through already less than a month ago. I'll be really sort of slightly. I hope he's here. Yeah. Wow. I don't know. It's a weird summer, man. It's a weird summer. I hope. Yeah, I know, Russell. Right? We went through this last month too, right? It's like okay. Uh, I think it's going to get to the point now where I'm going to do all my promotion after the show is over with, after the interview's over with, and then I'm going to go out there and promote it. I think I'm done promoting it before the show because of this sort of thing right here. So, I mean, if you come in and you do the show, I'll promote it, but otherwise, I'm not going to do it anymore. It's too it puts me in a hole because I've already advertised on 15 different channels. They let me go in there and promote the show, and whenever someone doesn't show up, it just puts me in a really bad spot. Oh, Russell says they got smoke from the fire. Wow. Is it orange? Is your sky all orange like we were? Holy cow. Man, that's crazy. I haven't kept up with the Canadian fires yet, so I thought things were hopefully calmed down, but a wildland fire, it takes a long time for it to go out. No, yeah. Yeah, when you get a wildland fire, you'll hear them say it's like 30% contained or 60% contained, or even once in a while say it's 100% contained. It's contained in the fact that it's not spreading, but you have to walk through all the burned areas and go over them all over again. You have to hit them with a lot of water. You have to turn over all the burnt ground, all the trees, because it could be smoldering. There could be embers underneath what could be you think it's put out, but you have to go through and drag it again and make sure it's 100% out. Contain just means as far as its growth goes. It doesn't mean how. I mean, as far as it's put out, it's like it's 40% put out. No, it just means it's 40% of a circle. So it's not going past that. So, but yeah, wildland fires, man, they're a bear. They are a bear. Not fun to do. A lot of work. A lot of work. And the fire is so fast. Uh, yeah, Europe is going through that heat wave, man. That's terrible. Again, they went through that last year, the heat wave, and they're getting it again this year too. Unbelievable how bad it is over there. And of course, we're getting it over here too. Out in the west. All right. Well, get that walk on. Get something cold to drink. In time for Michael. Hell, I might be over there. I'll be over there if my guest doesn't show up by 8:30. I'll be over there. What time is it? Oh, all right. So we're gonna be talking for like 10 more minutes here. So we'll see where he's at. Hopefully he'll be here. I just want to see. All right. Well, I have no idea. Yeah, we'll be here till 8:30. That's how I go. I generally we generally go for a half hour and let the guests get in here because something could be going on with them. I don't know, but I told him already. I told him I sent him the link. He acknowledged it. Yeah, I sent it to him on. I sent the link to him and through Facebook and email. So he did get it. He just popped up on Facebook. All right. So we might be saved after all. He just popped up. Oh, he might have just gotten home. I'm not sure. I know he lives in Georgia. I believe he lives in Georgia, so he is East Coast. So that's. All right. All right. Oh, what else is going on today? Not really sure. Um, yeah, I got warm again today. For a while there, it was spring. Yesterday it was spring, and today it's back up to summer. All right. Saved by the Saved by the Bell.
I am so sorry. I'll go to pull up my laptop and this thing, like Microsoft pushed some type of update and I had to completely set up my Microsoft account and everything. So I can't tell you the last time I did that. So,
Yeah,
sorry about
I'm
that.
horribly. Yeah, we're horribly late. I'm about ready to give
Yeah.
up on it. I generally go a half hour after, after a half hour, it ain't happening. But you made it through. So we'll go ahead and chop it up for an hour or so. And yeah, it happens as long as you're okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, sorry about that. Honestly, I was a little late getting to my laptop because I had an alarm set and my alarm did not go off. I don't know why. I guess my phone was on silent, and so I pull up my laptop and it was just a mess. So sorry about that. Just a
Well,
couple different things that kind of nipped me in the bud there.
it's all right. I'm just glad you're here. I would have been a little bit more frosty if I had gone dark. That would have been a little bit more like, "Rah." But as long as you're okay, that's the first thing I always worry about. Is like, are you okay? You know, was there any accident, something at home? That always comes first.
No,
I totally get that. So, all right. Well, we got everything lined up here for you. Um, we can talk about your films, talk about your book. Um, I'm surprised you didn't throw down a dragon claw on your laptop because you are a martial artist. Thank God you
I
didn't
am.
scorpion kick it up. I know.
I
I was like,
am. Where'd you
maybe,
find that?
maybe, huh? Yeah, I found that out,
Okay.
and I was just thinking to myself, going like, maybe he needs to scorpion kick that laptop. We're talking little Cynthia Rothrock. You know what? Let me ask you this.
Okay.
This will be since since we're having so much, we're gonna have a lot of fun here. So let this be my very first question to you, Kenyon.
Okay.
Why didn't Cynthia Rothrock become a bigger star than she is?
Oh gosh. I mean, she back in the day, she was. I mean, I think she was a pretty decent sized star back in the day, if especially
Yeah.
if you were into martial arts films, you know. And I know she's still doing films. I think, you know, there was a kind of in the '80s there was this kind of martial arts craze, right? So you had
Yeah.
martial arts kind of in the big budget stuff, but then you also had all this stuff that was kind of um, anywhere from low budget to kind of mid range, that it was just like pumping out, and you had all kinds of stuff, all kinds of people too. And I think what happened is the market got so saturated with martial artists that it was hard for many of them to ever hit that next tier, right? It's sort of like I guess supply was greater than demand. I mean, they were all making money. Don't get me wrong, but you know, excuse me, but there was just more of them than you know. You were at no loss for martial artists, right? And in those movies, acting wasn't the biggest skill set, right? Not saying that some of them couldn't act, but none of those movies would ever win awards for the acting. And I'll tell you, I'll give you an example. Ian Thomas Griffith,
Yeah.
actor and martial artist.
Yep.
He was, yeah, he I think he probably got into acting through his martial arts, but ended up doing films outside of martial arts that had nothing to do with martial arts, right? And so I think that's part of it is if you want to have that longevity, you gotta have more than one trick, right? If martial arts is your trick, there's very few of them that have that. I guess that extra star boost. I mean, you can probably count them on both hands. You know, when you think about the ones today who are still making martial arts movies. So of that caliber,
not very
anyways.
many people today, are there? There's not that very many today. I mean, we think about it, like it's martial arts. The martial arts field is really thin.
Oh
As
yeah,
far as
yeah.
household names go. I mean, there's just not that many, and
Well,
nobody really young.
there's not. And when you think about it, I mean, one I'll throw out is Jackie Chan, right? But Jackie Chan was successful not just because of his martial arts, because a lot of times his stuff's funny, right?
Yeah,
It wasn't just martial arts; it was something that could appeal to more people. And then you look at maybe some other people. Let's take Dolph Lundgren, for example. That man is a true martial artist, a champion. That guy's won serious stuff, right? But he did action movies, and in some of his movies, you never saw martial arts. right? At all.
No.
So, but I think the ones that kind of struggled, and even as big as Jean-Claude Van Damme, and he's even struggled, is the ones where if if they're not doing martial arts, people aren't watching it, you know.
That's
And
a shame too, because Dolph Lundgren and John Van Damme and Jackie Chan too, for that matter.
mhm,
You look at Donnie Yen and Jet Li. All those guys have all gotten older, but there's one
yep,
thing they've also gotten too, and they've also gotten so much better as actors. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
you look at some of these guys now. Even Sylvester Stallone, we were talking about him yesterday. Man, he's done some of his best acting in that Tulsa King.
oh yeah,
He's
yeah,
really good in that. I mean, and there's no fisticuffs, there's no none of that. The martial arts, like Jet Li and the Donnie Yen, they've all gotten better acting wise, and it just seems like it's a shame that it's a shame that all those leaders in a genre have done so well, but there's nobody behind them. There's nobody in their early 20s behind them coming through to become the next wave of martial artists because look, we've seen Furious, we've seen The Raid Redemption, we've seen Tony
yeah.
Jaa. I mean, there's money to be made. I mean, martial arts are still a very popular genre, but for some reason, it just gets forgotten on here in America unless it is coming from Hong Kong.
Yeah, it is. Um, but I think that's because when you start looking at some of the films we're doing, you've got John Wick. Let's look at John Wick for a second. You've got somebody that you don't typically think of a martial artist, right?
Right.
But by golly, he's trained. He's done martial arts for a long time, and then so being able to do an action movie and make those sequences seem uh, authentic. you know, you've got basically a lot of actors who are willing to do things like go out and train with Delta Force and go out and train with some of these guys. And they might have one movie that is an action with some type of combat skills in it, right? And so we've kind of gravitated towards that, I think, rather than having like the true martial artist. And there are guys out there. I mean, don't get me wrong. You've got Scott Atkins,
Yeah, he's amazing.
who's a phenomenal martial artist. You've got Ray. Shoot. Um, you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, Ray
Ray
Park,
Park.
Ray
Yeah,
Park,
thank you.
yeah, he's still out there.
Ray Park, phenomenal martial artist. Then you've got some guys that you probably didn't know who martial artist. Michael Copen, if you know who he is, he was the Blue Power Ranger back in the day, but then he was also on One Tree Hill, and he was on um,
Nice.
one of the Scorpion King movies, and gosh, he's done a lot of different stuff. Bring It On, In It to Win It. The cheerleading movie. He was a male cheerleader, right? But
Okay.
he even got his start in martial arts. Um, um, so I mean they're out there. But again, I think in the U.S. Especially because martial arts isn't ingrained in our culture quite like it is in the East, right? There,
Yeah, you would have thought with Bruce Lee that it would have, like I mean, people still talk about Bruce Lee all the time, and he's still a household name. And you think that would lead to, that, through him and other folks that followed him, you think there have been a wider, there have been a bigger success pool, bigger pool out there. So like when someone like a Dolph Lundgren or a Keanu Reeves steps out, there'd be some, like all the new kids from Cobra Kai, you look at them going like, okay, there's like
mhm,
20 kids here,
yep.
that could actually do it. But we haven't heard or seen anything from those kids as far as moving forward, becoming new action stars that might feature some martial arts. We haven't seen any of that activity from that group of kids. And you're going like, man, that's a wasted opportunity there. I'm not saying that they
Yeah.
have to be, not stereotyped at all, but at least they could come on there to do an action movie and get seen as an potential action star.
Yeah,
It's just we just don't see that anymore.
we don't, and I think that's because they want to be broad. They 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 view it as a business, and so they want to be able to play the different roles and have more opportunities. I mean, yeah, honestly, so I am definitely not in shape for martial arts these days. Getting older and less active myself, but um, I've been in a few things. My first film actually was a martial arts film. Now that I think about it, I played a referee at a karate tournament. But outside of that, I haven't even really thought about seriously trying to do anything like that. Just because opportunities.
I was going to ask you if you had used use for in your films that you've done, Country Rain or the Karate Princess. Have you had a chance to use some of those skills into those movies?
So funny enough, in Karate Princess, the lead actress, she had taken martial arts years ago, but she hadn't done it, gosh, in quite a while. And so when we were on set, she was we were talking about some things, and she's like, "Hey, can you walk me through this? I forgot how to do this." So I'll walk her through a couple things. When we were doing some of the karate matches there, I helped to choreograph some of the karate matches between the kids who were actual students, right? But actually choreographing a fight was not something that ever done before. So just to choreograph some of the matches between the kids, I helped to do that. Um, got to work out with the kids a little bit, some too. But the only thing I really did in there, um, I actually played like two or three different roles in that movie. You only actually noticed me for one, but toward the beginning of the film, there's somebody who a thug going up down the street who takes a lady's purse and takes off with it, and that's where the main actress, she does kind of a spin kick and trips the guy up. And that guy happened to be me. You never see the front of me, you just see the back of me. And so I taught her that kick to trip me up, and then I just fall forward into a roll and roll back up and just keep running and leave the purse. The purse stays on the ground. And so that was about it for actually doing anything on film. Was I did a roll, I did a forward roll, um, but one of the things they said, nobody there, well, most of the people there didn't know I had martial arts experience until I started helping to choreograph some stuff. And one of the guys walks up to me after we film, do an initial run through of one of the matches, and they say, "Hey, it looks like you've done this before." He said, have you been to karate tournaments or stuff?" I'm like, "Been to them." And so I had to explain, I was on a U.S. karate team back in 2010. So yeah, I mean, but that was about it, and haven't done anything with it since in film.
How did you end up? Because what came first for you, Kenyon? I mean, I saw the part about the martial arts, but you're also a published author. You have 10 books underneath your belt. I'm taking that writing came first, then music, then martial arts, then movies.
So, I mean, if you go all the way back to middle school, then yes, writing came first. I've always enjoyed writing, but I actually started martial arts, I guess, seriously in high school for several years. Came out of high school, went into the Marine Corps for a spell, came out, went into law enforcement, and then that's where I kind of got back into martial arts again. Finished up, got my black belt. Kind of got away from it, and then went through a divorce in 2009, needed something to occupy my time, got back into martial arts again, ended up trying out for the U.S. karate team and made it. So I went to Scotland to compete in the world championship. So yeah, it was kind of this on again, off again thing. It would pop up in my life, I guess, in times when I needed it, and so.
Yeah. How hard is it to train and to compete when you have something stressful like a divorce on there? I mean, is that where you just fall back into into the zen of it and let it just? Because to me, it's like, a lot of people would be just, they'd be angry, but I guess a martial artist, I guess it has that inner peace, and you just, you know that there's, you can only
Um,
control what you control, right?
well, there's both sides of it. I mean, there's the sparring part, and then there's the training part, right? And
Right.
so sometimes when you're training, it's okay to be angry. You know, um, I've broken probably more than my share of hanging bags. I've had chains snap on me before when I've been angry in training, more than once. So it's a lot better than being angry with someone. You get that
Right.
energy out. Because I mean, sometimes you can't force peace. Sometimes we've got situations in our lives that just, they almost say more than we can handle, and maybe they are more than we can handle, and that's why we need God to help us through it. Um,
Right.
but sometimes we need those safe physical outlets too. So it might be, going to the gym and kind of pushing yourself on weights. I've seen people do that. I was never much on. I mean, I've gone to the gym and worked out and stuff over the years, but I've never been one to really try to build size. Just because of martial arts and stuff I do, it's hard to stay limber and build that kind of size. So for me, getting those frustrations out usually involved some type of heavy bag. So
Uh, so you know that you mentioned God and how important it is. You've written 10 books, and you've gotten a handful of movies you're working on. Um, how did you find, I consider you a faith-based filmmaker, so let's
yep,
talk a little bit about that. How did you get, I mean, the books came first, right?
they did.
The book
Yeah.
is even those books, those. So how did you get, as far as the faith-based goes, how did you get involved in that? And what do you consider, how do you define the term, if you use the term of faith-based? I mean, what does that term mean to you? Does it mean anything, or is it just a label that people like me slap on, that they just slap on and label everybody like that?
You know, that's something that I myself continue to struggle to define, right? Because I don't think anyone agrees on what exactly faith-based means, right? So you've got somewhere where maybe the I guess the story and the actions in it and maybe the meaning behind it aligns with faith, with some of the core tenets of faith. You've got some where it's, ingrained into the story, maybe, sort of like Southern literature, just because it's, part of the culture in the South that usually has some elements of church or religion in it, not always. But some people view a faith-based can be something like that, where it's just part of the story, it's part of the character. Others believe that it has to intently point to Christ, or point to God, or point to religion, or some type of overt message. So that's really a struggle for me. I continue to work on that. So the first movie that I produced was Country Rain. That one is a drama. The faith message is kind of in there. It's a man who's basically a workaholic. He happens to be a country singer, right? But he's a workaholic, and that's something that I think a lot of people can relate to. I didn't want to do drugs, sex, alcohol, because not everybody can relate to those things. But I think a lot of us can relate to the idea that, man, are we really giving our family the attention that we need to? And so as as that marriage is on the rocks and he goes through his own personal journey, the idea of getting back to who he was and who he lost somewhere along the way, which was someone that faith was a part of his life, at least to some extent. That's kind of the message there. It's, you know, it's not preachy. It doesn't try to apostolize anybody or disciple anybody necessarily. It's just a story about a man and what it took for him to pick his life back up and correct course, choose the direction, right? With Sanctus House, which is a horror film, that's a little bit different. I've had people tell me, hey, that can't be faith based. It's a horror film. You can't have a faith based horror film.
Well, why
And
why not? I
well,
mean,
that's
isn't Jesus after he's arrested? Isn't that pretty much a horror movie all in itself?
I've made the same the same conclusions, right? So, I like to use. I've told more than one person that, if you look at the parable of the sower, right, and sower's going out and it's casting four different kinds of seeds, which seeds represent the word, and then of those seeds, three of them basically end up, going to the wayside, and one of them produces fruit. And I said, so if we take that and we apply even distribution just to people that hear the word, right? Based on that parable, 75% of them have gone to hell. That sounds pretty horrific, right? That sounds pretty horrible. So that's, I think there are a lot of things in Scripture, even some of the parables that Jesus told, that depending on how you wanted to illustrate that story, could seem pretty horrific. I mean, you take the parable of the landlord and the tenants, right? They kept beating up and killing everybody he sent, including his son, right? Well, by golly, that sounds kind of like the makings of a horror film until he finally comes and kills them, right?
Right.
So, and you've got, I mean, that's just one example, but you've got more and more that it's all in how you present it, right? It can be a drama or it could be a horror story, but the message is still there either way because it's the same story. So I think you absolutely can have faith-based horror.
I do too. I remember a movie growing up that I remember, and I still can remember it, I was really young. But there was a scene in that movie that just stayed with me forever. And the movie was called The Cross and the Switchblade. And it starred Pat Boone. I'm not sure if you ever heard of it. It was from a long time ago. But there's a scene where one of the characters named Nicky Cruz, who ended up being a minister, but he was in this gang and he was, he's on drugs, and they're trying, Pat Boone's character was trying to, get him out of that. And they showed Nicky Cruz having a nightmare that he was burning in hell. And it was very, very vivid, very like, holy crow, people were, people weren't ready for that. It was supposed to be a Christian film, and I just remember that and I'm going like, wow, for a Christian film, that was actually quite terrifying. But that's according if you believe or not. But that's what it was supposed to be intended for. It was supposed to intend to scare you, to scare straight and whatnot. And again, it's like after every time you look at the story of Jesus, every time he gets arrested, again, it's like, tell me where does not that movie stop being he's going around doing miracles for everybody. All of a sudden now he's being locked up, he's being tempted by the devil. I mean, he gets whipped, he gets hung. I mean, he gets put on the cross. I mean, how is that not a horror film? If we did that and we didn't, and if we did that movie and took away the name Jesus, I mean, who the horror people would be all over it. They'd be all over it. I as far as defining faith-based, I mean, I think I'm looking at Country Rain. I think it's it looks very good. As far as that goes, I mean, I think it's just gonna sound funny, but I think the lower the budget, the more faith. it's almost like a church.
Yeah.
The less people in the church, the more faith. My
Yeah.
pastor told me that. He says you can always tell faith. You can always tell how you can always tell the spiritual, how a spiritual health of a church is when you walk in and see how many people are in there. If you walk in there and you see 10,000 people at a Joel Osteen church, rest assured God ain't there. If you go inside of a church where there's maybe 20 or 30 people in there, and they have a pastor who's bringing the noise every Sunday, chances are God is there as with you. And my pastor pretty much was right about that, unfortunately. But I like how I like, I'm looking at the cast members you have. You got a couple of big names on there. I'm sure you got them I'm sure that was some interesting negotiations. I want to talk to you about that in a minute. Um, had you ever done anything like this before you got it, before you decided to make your first film?
No. And so the way I got into film is actually kind of an interesting story. So, um, I will do conventions with books. I'll go to conventions and sign books and stuff. And I've done that for, gosh, several years now, pretty much since my first book came out in 2017. And a lot of times I'll get up to stretch my legs and I'll walk around and just go around and meet people. And it's funny, some of the other authors would always kind of joke with me and give me a hard time because they'd look over and I'd be talking to somebody like Corbin Burnson or Michael Copen, for example, and various actors, Gary Busey, and they're like, "What are you talking to him about?" And I'm like, "Well, talking to him just about everything, everyday life, faith, movies," and they'd joke and they'd go, they're always going to tell like that. Like I was going to them and talking to them about movies, and usually I wasn't. I was just talking to them. But I would turn around and tell those authors, I'd say, you know what, that's fine. Even if I am doing that, I can get 1,000 no's and that's fine. The only thing that matters is the one yes, right?
Yep.
And so I'm literally at a convention. There's nobody there. It's dead as a doornail. And I look over and I turn around and look over my shoulder, and on the aisle behind me, on the opposite side of that aisle, kind of facing me, I see Kevin Sorbo. If you remember Kevin, he was Hercules back in the day, along with a bunch of other stuff, and he's flipping through his phone. That's how dead it is. He's just sitting there flipping through his phone. And I'm like, well, shoot, he looks about as bored as I am, so I'm going to go talk to him. And so I go over and talk to him, and we're just sitting there talking. And he's been in some Christian films, right? God's Not Dead and some other things. And so I talked to him a little bit about Christian film. And one of the things I asked him at a point, once I kind of got comfortable talking, I said, how do we get better writing in Christian film? Because there seems to be this, either the writing is good and where we would expect it to be, or it's not, right? There's very little middle ground. Like with some of the martial arts movies we were talking about, they're not known for their writing, but at least the story's there and we're really watching the action, right? But with Christian film, there's really not that middle ground, or at least it didn't seem that way to me. And he just kind of looked at me and smiled. He said, we're trying. He said, I know what you mean. You've got the ones that everybody knows about, Fireproof or some of those where they have really good stories. And then you've got some where it seems like the story's going along and it's building, and then the movie just stops and you're like, wait, what just happened? There's no climax. There's no, and he said, we're trying. And we kept talking about that. And then he asked me what I was doing. I said, well, those books over there. I said, I'm the author. And he said, I started working with the studio. Let me give you their information. So he gave me their information, and that's how I ended up being in Karate Princess, because when I reached out to the studio, they said, "Hey, we're holding an audition down in Atlanta. Why don't you go down and talk to them about writing, um, and they'll get your information and kind of meet with you and talk with you." And so that's what I did. Went down, met with them, talked with them. While I was there, they said, "Hey, why don't you just read some lines since you're here?" I said, "Okay." Next thing I know, they cast me in Karate Princess. And then I'm sitting on set. I'm working on my laptop, and Jason, with president of JC Films, walks up and says, "What are you working on?" And I said, "Well, I'm writing a script." He said, "Can I read?" I said, "I've only got 10 pages, but sure." And so he flipped it around, read the first 10 pages, and he said, "Well, how does it end?" And I kind of told him the rest of the story, and he said, "Let's do it." And so that was Country Rain, and that's a long story as to how I got into making films. I didn't go down there thinking that, while I was down there, I would end up, writing and producing and being in a film that I was that involved in. It's kind of wild to think of how all that transpired.
How long did it take you to well, you know what, let me tell you how. So I think that I'm fascinated by the genre, for one thing. I mean, Christian, faith-based films. I feel it's an oxymoron. Um, I remember the first real Christian film that I saw was by Kelly's Filmworks, Jefferson Moore and his wife Kelly.
Hmm.
And I remember watching The Perfect Stranger on midnight on a little religious station. I'd never seen them carry a movie before, but I stumbled across it and I was like hooked because it was such an interesting story.
Yeah.
And so I watched it and I was like, man, this is really good. I mean, it really feels grounded. And the next week I was like, okay, was that just a one-time thing, or are they going to do this again? I go back and I turn it on next Saturday, and this time I'm watching Flywheel by the Kendricks. That movie was really good.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. And then and that's when all of a sudden it's like, both those, more so the Kendrick brothers than Jefferson and Kelly, but they started getting a little bit of a vibe, a little bit of,
Yeah.
and sure enough, they got picked up by Sony.
Yeah.
And also now these movies are, now they're going Hollywood, getting budgets, getting big name stars, but they lost something. They lost something big. They
Yeah.
lost the faith. They lost what they got them there, because those movies that you watch there now, they're I don't you there's no Christianity in them. There's none. It's Hollywood. It's Hollywood's version of religious movies. And I remember, I've told this story many times when I talk about religious, I talk about faith-based films, but I always say well-known actress who was in this faith-based film that was opening the Friday. 2 days before that, they show her on a YouTube video, and she's doing this. She's doing this nursery rhyme for her kids, and it's as profane as you could get. It's
Mm.
profane. It's like, and you're sitting there like, wow, that's coming from her. Yeah, here we are. We're gonna turn around and see her in this faith-based movie, all about God and miracle, and then we got this. And this is what you want us to look at as Christianity, as faith-based films. And after
Yeah.
that, and then once Sony got into it more, I'm going like, Sony, there's not a single damn person in Sony in the headquarters there that's a Christian. They're probably they're not. They're Japanese. They do their own thing. They don't do Christian. And it's like, what they saw was just a chance to make more money. And the other thing was, where if you go back to the Kendricks, what really made it really special was the fact that everybody that they were doing their early films were all members of the church. They're not actors. They're just
Yeah.
congregation members. And I'm sitting there watching this movie, and I'm just really touched by this. This is what it means. It's from the heart, from the soul. But
Yeah.
then they got their deal. They got their deal with Sony, And all of a sudden, it's like none of those people are they're making a Kendrick movie. They're doing good raw movies. I mean, yeah, I'll give them that foolproof, fireproof. Uh, you know, um, there's several others out there. I don't know. I felt like people's faith was suddenly put up on an auction block to be bought and sold. Like, well, how
Yeah.
can we get, like Angel Pictures is the same way now. Before they come up with really, earnest pictures, now they're doing action films. They're doing propaganda films, young Washington. It's propaganda. It's not Christianity, it's not faith-based, but it's so to what I'm saying though is that when someone like yourself comes through with a movie like Country Rain, that's the type of movie that I want to see because chances are there's nobody really there that's acting. They're all coming doing they're doing this from their heart. They absolutely have the best of intentions. They're not looking to make, I'm sure when you made the movie, you weren't sitting there, you're thinking, just talking to you just for this half hour, I can already say that you were more interested in getting the story out than making the money off of it. It wasn't about the money for you, it was about
What money?
reaching people. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So it's interesting that you say that. One of the things that I love about our films is that 90% or more of the people there are volunteers. They're not paid. They're there because they want to be there. Some of them then go on to paid jobs. They get experience and they go on to stuff. But they're there because they believe in what we're doing. They're there because they want to support us. They're there because they want to be part of it. And one of the things that happened for me on Country Rain that was really special is that I think for the first time in my life, I really kind of had a better picture of the ministry of Christ. Um, you know, Christ's life has impacted millions and millions and millions, billions, right? And will continue to do so. Um, but his ministry, when you really look at it, you look at the people that he spent most of his time with, it was a handful of people. It was those people that were closest to him, those people that he poured in after he was separated from the thousands, those people that he would, talk to and say, "Hey, did you understand what I was saying today?" Right? Did you understand the parable? And they're like, "No, we didn't understand it. Explain it to us." And he poured into them, and he poured into all of them. Meaning he also poured into Judas, right? Knowing full well that Judas would betray him. And so one of the things that came out of Country Rain was we had a little wrap party the day after filming for everybody that was local, which was most of them that were local and could come to it. And we had 3 different people come up and just hug our neck in tears and just tell us that what it meant for them to be on set and to be surrounded by people that genuinely cared for them. Um, One person was telling us we didn't know what was going on in their life and how much they needed it. Another person was just, used to want to do this when I was younger, and then started to believe that I'd never have an opportunity to work on a project like this that I could stand behind with faith, and then you came along, and so just to see how much it meant to people that we were there for them, and that day in and day out, it wasn't just about making the movie. It was about being there for each other during that process, and that was the first time that I really started to. I think it started to click for me that was really Christ's ministry. Christ poured into those people that he was closest to. Not just the 12, but he had friends that it mentions in the Bible that were there with him, and family, and pouring into them. And it's through those people who then went out and spread his message and changed the world. And so that's how you do it. It's not, people who watch Country Rain, I get good stories from people all the time that have watched it and come back and tell me, what it did for them or whatever. But Um, a story like Country Rain is not. It's not going to. I don't think it'll ever have the impact that working with somebody throughout the filming of the movie did. You know, um, just because it's a story, and a lot of times when we get up and we watch the story, we might think about it for a little bit and then we go away, right? So it's not just maybe the one story that has that kind of impact, but it's that continued, sustained relationship, that truly has an impact.
I think I do think like every movie has that impact. Like the movies that you remember, like if I asked you what was your what horror movies did you grow up with that stuck with you, I'm sure you could remember them and tell me. Like these are the actors or actresses I stuck with, or even as far as writing goes, like you write a fantasy series, and if I asked you who was your biggest influence, you still who the influence is. You still that stays with you. Um, I think it's like that with faith based too. I mean, it's funny as how I never really see anybody talk about the movies outside of like here I'm in YouTube. I talk to people from film all the time. I have people who movies and whatnot, good people, and they watch dramas, they watch thrillers, they watch everything, but I never hear them talk about faith-based movies. No one talks about it. Doesn't mean it's not there. It just means that it's not impactful yet. There's no one's watched a film yet that's actually that where that movie has stayed with them, which is really what's as a filmmaker, that's what you really want. You want your movie to live with somebody, to
Yeah.
remember it. When people say, what's your top 20 movies, those are the top 20 movies that stayed with you, that impacted you in your life. Who's to say that Country Rain can't do the same? Because every faith-based movie that me for example, all have been lower budgeted, all have been volunteered, all have been true, with scripture in the movie itself. It's
Yeah.
all stayed in there. It's like it's not a big production number. It doesn't have big name Hollywood stars. Those movies like that, here today, gone tomorrow. Who cares? Also, it's just product for them. They're just trying to make money off of it. There's no heart or soul in it. A movie like what Jefferson and Kelly do, like yourself do, what the Kendricks used to do. Um, yeah, like back then, you really have faith in you have faith in those people, like like they had a walk with God, and it shows in their movies. It shows that there's true faith coming through there. But now you watch it like a Homestead, or like I said, the Young Washington, or I think they're doing another one called Runner. It's supposed to be from Angel, and it's an action movie, and it looks violent, and it's like, are you gonna wrap Jesus around a violent chase? Are you gonna? Are we? Is that where we're going to now? I mean, what happened to the to the small movies, to the ones that have heart? I mean, it's funny is that though they don't really mention it in their movies, but you look at movies like Hallmark movies, and they have more faith in those movies for the most part than the movies that get out there, thump their chest, and say, "Look, I'm a Christian movie," and they're anything but. Even by their own definition, they're not. Um, I mean, that's got to be the hardest part about doing a film like that. To do that, and to keep, to walk, keep your walk as circumspect as possible. You don't want it just to be anybody. I mean, I already know, like I already know some people, they look at the movie. So you had Richard Grieco and you had Dean Cain, and I could
Mhm.
already hear people already yipping about that. But you know what? I'll sit here and ask you, what was that like? What was it like working with those gentlemen? Were they humble? Were they happy to be there? or did they look at it as a job and they were gone the next day after you paid them their rate? Did they stick around? I mean, or was it just a payday for them? I mean, it wasn't to you. It's precious to you
Yeah.
and your,
Right.
but what about them? Was it precious to them in your
Um,
opinion?
yeah, I don't know. So I'll tell you, I had slightly different experiences with both of them, and it was good in both situations. I'll tell you, in Country Rain, so Dean plays kind of the record label representative, and he plays a jerk, right? And back in the day, Dean had dated a country musician who eventually, I believe, she died of a drug overdose. And I had read somewhere that he kind of blamed country music and the producers for constantly pushing her and driving her to drugs, right?
Mm,
And so, anyways,
Millie McCready.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Ah,
when he read that script, or when he showed up, he said he immediately told him, "Hey, go get the writer for me. I want to talk to him." So I go in there, and he says, "Hey, I want to talk to you about this character." He says, "First of all, thank you for casting me as a bad guy. I love it in this film." He said, "But." He said, "This guy seems a little ambiguous at first, like you're not sure if he's going to be a bad guy or if he's just kind of, um, unsure at first. And then later you realize, okay, yeah, this guy's a jerk." He says, "I want him to be a jerk from the get-go." He says, "Because I don't like these guys, some of these guys would stab their own mothers in the back, and
yeah, they would. Yes,
and
they would.
he says it's for a lot of them it's just about the money. It's not about the people." And he says, "So I don't like them in general. Not to say that every single one of them is bad, um, but he says, so I just really want to play this guy from a jerk from the get go." To me, that tells me that he cared about the story, or at least a part of the story, right? Because he really wanted to sell that it was pretty much he's at odds with the record label. The record label is from the very beginning trying to push him a direction, being the country music star, um, and he thinks the record label is looking out for him, but in truth they're not, right? And you kind of know that from the beginning. And I think it was the right call. And then in between filming, he's out meeting people, talking to them, kind of getting to know them, very personable. So enjoyed having him on set. And then Richard Grieco, I can't do this without doing a horrible Richard Grieco impersonation. So bear with me. Richard calls me a couple weeks before we start filming. He goes, I get this strange number from California calling me, and I usually don't answer those, but leading up to filming, I'm like, I better answer this. I don't know who it is. And I answer the phone, and he goes, "Hey, Richard." And he talks real soft, but his voice is kind of gravelly, right? He goes, "Hey, Kenyon, this is Richard Grieco. I'm going to be in your movie that's coming up." I'm like, "Oh, hey, Richard, how's it going?" "Oh, it's going good. I wanted to talk to you about being on set, And so he proceeds to tell me that, "Hey, look, I know there's some younger actors, and actresses that are going to be in this film. If you could just let them know that when we're on set, if they have any questions or they want any advice or they want to work through lines or whatever, I'm completely open to that. I love helping the next generation. I love what I do. So, just make sure that they know that, I may go sit somewhere over to the side, but that doesn't mean that I don't want people to talk to me, if I can help them. So, just let them know that." And true to his word on set, I mean, he was walking around and, helping people, having conversations with them about, their craft and, giving them advice. And he was a lot of fun to work with too. So, really, as far as my experience, again, different personalities, obviously. Um,
Yeah.
Dean's in his personality, he's I don't know how to explain it, but he's a little more reserved and whatnot, whereas Richard's very relaxed, and very chill. But they were both great to work with. I'd do it again. There's been some people that I've worked with that maybe not, but both of those guys, they were fun to work with. We had a lot of fun with them.
I think that's cool, and I think that for a lot of these guys, unfortunately, I mean it's just the way of life. But a lot of them, it's like it's hard to get into it without really getting into it. But they've lost a lot of their fan bases too because of their not because of their faith. They would sit there and tell you it's because I'm a Christian. It's like, no, I don't think people really have a problem with that because most people say they're Christian anyway. I think what they a little bit upset about is like the politics, of the thing,
Yeah.
because I still watch their movies. I still watch, Kevin Sorbo movies. I think he's a great Western star. I think that's his forte, his Westerns. He's really good at them. Um, Richard Grieco, I didn't really think of him as a faith-based star, but I look at, like someone like a Jim Caviezel or, someone like that, or Dean Cain, or, um, Antonio Sabato that have expressed their opinions, and people have just, they've just they've turned on them, so to speak.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean doesn't mean that they're any less people than what they are.
Yeah.
Just hey Jerry, how are you, sir? How are you? He's saying hi to us both. Um, let's talk a little bit about the series, the book series, because
Yeah.
that's been really probably your the strength of your creativity. I mean, I looked 10 books. Country Rain came from now that was a novelization of the movie, or did you write Country Rain and then make the movie?
The script came first. So
Okay.
the script for that one came first, and then, I said, books are my thing. So since I've already got the story, why not, right? So yeah, the script came first, and then flipped it into a novella, which people seem to enjoy. It gives you a little bit different take on the story, because one thing you can do in the book that you can't really do on the movie is you can let people know what a person's thinking, right? So
Right.
it paints sometimes a slightly different picture of what is actually happening, because kind of their inner thoughts, their inner intentions versus what you actually see. So, but other than that, it stays pretty true to the script, with a couple minor fun changes that I just thought would be fun just to kind of throw it in there for anybody who reads the book and sees the movie. So, and then, yeah, so all in all, 10 books. One of them is a comic book, which was spun off of the main series that I've got going. Presently 4 books in that series plus the comic book. Book 5 is in process and will be out at some point in the future. But that series is Chronicles of Stephen, which is, I don't know, if you think of maybe Percy Jackson meets Mortal Instruments, somewhere along along the lines. But it's I have a lot of fun when I write, because even though I write fiction and fantasy, there's some things I do that really are fun. And one thing I do is I do a lot of research sometimes, because I like to weave other myths and things into my stories. In that particular series, every place that I describe, because there's a lot of different places that they go in the book. Every place I describe, I've actually been there. I've stood on that ground. So everything that you see are things that I actually saw while I was there, which is kind of interesting. I've had people call me out on it who have been to some of those places. Like, for example, probably the main place that's in that series is St. Louis, Missouri. And so I've had more than a few people from St. Louis read it. And a couple have commented, hey, you've actually been to St. Louis. I'm like, yes, I have. Why do you say that? And some of the things that I point out are just things that people wouldn't point out unless you've been there, you know. So, but those are some tidbits and things I did.
I saw the St. Louis Arch. I was wondering how that played into it. There was a series on Sci-Fi Channel called Defiance, and that was a big part of it was the Arch. That's when I saw that, you know, because I saw your you said urban fantasy. I was thinking about Defiance when I saw that. So what inspired the book of Stephen? What was the inspiration? Because there are a lot of young adult books out there and what have you. I mean, a lot of, you know, but a Christian set urban fantasy. There's not too many of that out there. So what inspired it?
So it started as a short story years and years ago, and it was honestly, I heard a preacher preach, and he was talking about people's favorite sin, right? And so basically the point that he was getting at is that a lot of times in our lives there's these things that we hold on to, maybe not because we want to hold on to, but because we struggle to let go of them. You know, it's the things that maybe we struggle to change or struggle to improve or what have you. And so the way my twisted mind works is I was like, imagine being someone that could see those things, not just that one thing, but see those parts of you that maybe you can't even see yourself, right? Because that was kind of what he was talking about with secret sin, is sometimes it's things that we don't even realize. And so then my mind goes down a rabbit hole. I used to love to write when I was younger, and so I just started writing, and I wrote this short story that was quite different from the final story, but had the same kind of premise for the underlying character who has the same name. And then I kept revisiting it. Finally, I said, I went and got books on how to write a novel, plot, theme, arc, you know, just all the things. Because I said, you know, I guess I need to learn how to write a novel, because I'm not going to stop until I get this out of my head. And so finally, you know, that was book one. It is a little edgy, and when I say edgy, it's a little dark. I mean, you know, the guy when we first see him, you know, he's basically losing his mind because he had never learned to control this. This was an ability that just kind of popped up. He wasn't happy about it, made him feel like there was something wrong with him. And so at the point where we're really kind of first introduced to him, he struggles to separate his memories from the memories he's picked up from other people, right? Because he never learned how to compartmentalize or how to deal with those things. And so he's pretty dark, he's pretty edgy. He had tried to do some good things with it and ended up doing some bad things instead. And kind of the idea behind there's other people with gifts and abilities too, but the idea behind it is, you know, the more you use those things unrestrained, right, without applying restraint, the more it becomes like a drug, the more it you know, kind of starts to control you. And that's how you end up with a group of people that are on the opposite side. You know, they try to use their abilities completely unrestrained, and you know, and not for the betterment of people, but for the control of people and whatnot. So
I like it. I like the sound of it. It sounds interesting. And I like the urban setting too.
yeah.
Why urban and not country, like a normal, like most fantasies are set up?
So, you know, urban fantasy essentially is stuff that's in modern day society. And so, you know, when you start having you know, you start thinking about fantasy and incorporating this social aspect of it, it's a lot more convenient to put it in the city, because you can, you've got more opportunities for things to happen, for secret societies, for, underground meetings, for all these kinds of things. Um, Otherwise, I don't know. If I was writing something that was present day fantasy, but they were all in the country, it might end up sounding like a bunch of rednecks who got drunk in a bar somewhere, and just ended up in a barn playing D&D.
I,
I mean,
I just think that to me, I think the urban setting's a lot more of a writing challenge. It's more writing intensive, to write in a modern setting versus someone who, like Tolkien, or J.R. Martin. They write out in the country. It's medieval times almost. It's not, the technology aspect of it plus fantasy opens a whole new world of possibilities.
yeah,
Whereas before it's like, I don't know if you know who David and Lee Eddings are. You ever heard of them?
no,
They wrote two series, The Malloreon and what they did was it was 5 books apiece, and they made fun of the whole on the quest. Like every fantasy is always a quest, and they made so much fun of that. I mean, the sorcerer, and just everything that you could think of, every trope that you could think of, they did it in the first 5 books, and the next 5 poke fun at the fact of the idea that writers come back and go back to their same thing. It's like it's the same quest all over again, and they go throughout the whole second series, going like, "Haven't we done this before? Haven't didn't you say that once before?" And it's just absolutely funny ass series. But I think writing fantasy in a modern world, someone like Rick Riordan or yourself in a modern world, I think that's more of a challenge as a writer than it is just to go back and, all right, let's go Knights of the Round Table. I mean, it's like, dude, man, we've done that so many times.
yeah.
There's only a certain finite amount that you can do with that.
You
Whereas
know,
modern setting is,
it's interesting that you say that, because the novella series that I've got out there now, there's 2 books in it. Return of Ancients is more of your traditional epic, high fantasy, right? But with a twist. I had someone ask me, I have people ask me all the time, what makes yours different? Because to their point, um, what they've explained is a lot of it starts to feel the same, right? And one of the things that I did, I mentioned earlier research. I like to research things. And when I start going down a rabbit hole, man, I go down that rabbit hole, and I did a ton of research in this series. I'm still doing research, um, because I guess the antagonists in it are actually monsters from other cultures in mythos, right? So you've got some things that look like werewolves. You got some, you do have a dragon in there, but then you've got Basma from early Russian culture, who was a witch who had 3 sons. So I basically take those 4 entities, Basma and her 3 sons, and kind of marry them with the idea of having the abilities of the 4 horsemen, right? You don't know that that's what I'm doing, but that's what I did, because I've done the research on it, and so I do a lot of that, pulling from other cultures, bringing them in. So it's almost like a fantasy horror, because I'm bringing all these monsters in from different cultures.
oh
And
my gosh, yeah.
the other thing that I did, if you read what kind of started this all, my wife had a dream. Not going to tell you the dream, because that'll give kind of the first book away, but she had this dream, right? And as she was telling me this dream, it's not like dreams that she would usually have. This was like just something out of the ordinary. Don't know why it happened. And I was like, man, you're right. That would make a good story. And I kind of ran with the idea. And the first thing I did was to say, okay, I'm going to put this in a fantasy setting, right? It had to do with werewolves, I'll tell you that. So I'm going to take and put this in a fantasy setting, because that'll make it different from just a werewolf movie. Now all of a sudden it's elves and dwarves and dragons and stuff. But what I also did, because it was werewolves, is I started researching and said, okay, where do we have the first, I guess, true historical information on the idea of a werewolf? And I'm not talking about, you know, because you can go all the way back to Egypt and stuff, but I'm talking about something that was maybe in a paper, published, or whatever. And it turns out that that was actually in a region of France called Gavaudan, right? And it was published in the papers in Paris under one of the King Louis. I can't remember which one, but you can look it up. It's readily available out there. They still have copies of the newspaper. But so I dug into that story, and as I'm digging into that story, what I end up doing is I go back and I find a map of France that's pre-Rome, right? So, and I say pre-Rome, pre-Roman conquest. And so some of the names of the places are Roman names, but some of the names in the places are the original Gaulish or Gaulish Celtic names, right? And so I start using those names and I start plotting out places. So if you were to try to plot out the places that are mentioned in this book, you would end up with a map of early France, right? Or early Gaul, because it wasn't called France back then, but that's basically what it is. So yeah, just a ton of research. It turned into really a project of love and just really trying to make it something different and unique rather than just another fantasy story.
I like stories. I know there's 2 series I can think of, probably 3 I can think of right off the top, where they combine different cultures and different beings from, like, there's there's the Greek gods, there's Norwegian gods, there's the English gods. I mean, I think about combining those, and Supernatural being one. I mean, they threw everything but the kitchen sink into that series. Grimm was another one that, combined different creatures from from different cultures. I thought that was interesting as well. I think when because to me it seems like fantasy writers, like science fiction writers, they have certain rules that they have to, not real rules, but writing rules. Like you can only go this far or do this. It's like why do we have to be limited to ourselves? Well, because the audience they'll reject that if you suddenly have if you have Thor suddenly pop up in the world of a ghost samurai in Japan. They might not like it. They might go like, oh yes, that's unbelievable, even though they're reading an unbelievable book, right? I mean,
Right.
I mean they're fickle, but I like the creativity. I like the idea. Maybe like, I don't know if you saw this movie, speaking of martial artists or not, but it was the Forbidden Kingdom, and it was the world that was set, and it was set in today's world. And then the young man,
Oh
he gets
yeah, he gets sucked back into yep,
right into the Chinese world.
yep.
That was just a fantastic movie. That
Oh
movie
yeah,
was really good,
yeah. It had
and not
was that the one with Jackie Chan and Jet Li?
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
Michael Agrano, and it wasn't just their typical happy-go-lucky either. There's some steel in that movie, but at the end of it, he comes back. We find out he's just been knocked out for a second before he is transported, but then he comes back and he retains everything. He retains everything. Before he wasn't a fighter at all, but he retrained. He kept everything. And so when they thought they were going to continue to beat him up, all of a sudden it's like when Neo in the Matrix said, "I know kung fu," whereas
Right.
before he didn't.
Right.
But I love that movie because it combined both urban and or historical, and I thought they did a really nice job with that. So I think the cultures can combine. And I like Percy Jackson too. I think Rick Riordan does a really good job with that. The combination of the two. I think he does a really great job with that. So,
Yeah.
to me, your series sounds just like straight up my cup of tea. Now,
It's
how does one buy your books? Are you on Amazon, or can
oh
they
yeah,
go through your website?
yeah. They can go through Amazon. If they go to my website, it just points them back to Amazon. So,
Okay,
but they can certainly go to my website and check it out. And if they click the link, it'll take them to Amazon directly where they can buy it, whether it's a print
sure.
or ebook. I've got a few out on Audible now, but not all of them yet. It's a work in progress. Um, so, but
Yeah, it seems like Audible books seem to be the wave of the future. Um, but to me, I just look at it sort of like it's just a radio all over again. You know, that's how I look at it, like it's radio.
yeah.
Uh, hey, John, how are you, sir? A good friend, John, Doomsday Crip, rolling in the house. Glad you're here, sir. Yeah, what I think is really cool about Audible books too is more and more are actually being done as dramas. You know, they're doing the book, but they're not just doing with the one reader. Now they have a cast of like 5 or 6 to fill out the roles. You know, like old radio programs. I
Yeah.
like it. I like that a lot. I think that's how I grew up cutting my teeth into fantasy and adventure. Was I listened to the Mystery Theater, CBS Mystery Theater. That was my very
Mm-hmm.
first introduction to anything. So what's next for you as far as film wise? Do you have anything new coming up?
Well, so we have Sanctus House, which we mentioned earlier, that just released. It's on Amazon Prime Video, and then we've got um, a movie called Where You Left Me. You mentioned Hallmark movies earlier. It's kind of a romantic. I call it a romantic comedy. My wife calls it a romantic dramedy because it does have a very dramatic twist. Um, but it's the beginning and the end are set at Christmas. So I mean, heck, you could I guess call it a Christmas romantic dramedy. Um, but it's a really good story. I'm really excited for that one. I think it's going to catch some people by surprise. So that
Good,
one we have
good.
Julie McCullough in it. She was in Growing Pains back in the day. She's been in a
Okay.
lot of other stuff too. She was in The Blob and I think even Sharknado and some stuff. But um, people generally
If you're in
recognize her most
If
from
you're,
Growing Pains.
I was gonna say, if you're in Sharknado, you're right at home at this channel because we do like sharks here.
Okay. Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. So we can get your books at your website. And get something new coming up. A new movie. Let's see. Or is that listed on your IMDb? Let me check real quick.
Which one? Where You Left Me?
Yes.
I don't know if Where You Left Me is listed on my IMDb yet. It might be. I might have just listed it
It,
as a placeholder
yeah.
without much information. But
It says here. Yeah, you got the stars out there.
okay.
You got
Okay.
Tisha Carmel, Ella
Hmm.
Evangeline Henry, Julie McCullough. Oh, you got Julie's gonna be great.
Yep.
Yeah, that's an interesting story right there, isn't it?
Yeah, Julie, um she plays the aunt of the main character who has dementia, right? So
Okay.
there are some funny moments there, but there's also some uh I guess some serious moments. The kind of the theme of the movie is dealing with grief, and so throughout the movie we kind of address we've got this one character who's dealing with these different types of grief. You know, his parents died when he was a kid. He was raised by his older brother and his aunt. The aunt's played by Julie, right? His older brother was just barely an adult, you know, when their parents died. So there's some impact from that. At the pretty close to the beginning of the movie, his girl that he's about to propose to, he's had commitment issues up until this point. He's about to propose to her. She tells him that she's leaving, so he's grieving that loss. Um, and then he also has an aunt that is slowly slipping away because of dementia, right? So there's different types of grief that we see through the movie and how he deals with it, and there's some very comedic moments in there, um, but it's it's an impactful movie. You know, you get to the end and you know, I wouldn't be surprised if it you know, made a few people shed some tears. But it's a good story with a good wrap up. Feel good at the end. So
Okay.
I think people will really enjoy it.
So that'll be hopefully out by the end of the year.
Hopefully,
And
that's what we're
yeah,
shooting for.
yeah, yeah. I can't wait to see this one. Real quick, this will be not one next to last question. But how'd you get Julie to come on board this?
So the studio that we partner with, JC Films, they have connections with various actors and actresses, and so um, you know, typically that's how we get the named, like Dean and Richard and Julie. They're people that they have connections with, and so I know who they're presently working with, and so when I am writing a film, I try to keep that in mind, as I'm thinking about it, because we want to have at least one of those recognizable names in the films
Yeah,
if we can, and
yeah, gotta have those.
but it's got to be the right role, so that
Agree.
I'm familiar with, with the stable that they do have. I'm familiar with the actors and what they can do, what I've seen them do, and so yeah, it's putting them in the right role, and so far they're nailing it, man. They're nailing it.
Yeah, and quite honestly, a lot of them are really grateful for the work too.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, all right. We have hit our mark for this one. Hey, Eric, how are you, sir? We have hit our mark. I want to thank you, Kenyon, for coming out, and hanging out with us. Uh, yeah, it was a lot of fun. Glad that you were able to make it, and looking forward to seeing Country Rain. I know it's playing on Tubi, so I will be giving it a watch and
Yep.
checking it out. And to everybody to the chat who came out here, I want to say thank you. I know Michael's here, and John, and Eric, and Tony, and Russell, and Jerry. Sue came in for a quick second, and Dominic. Thank you guys all for coming in here and supporting the show. And yeah, it's been great. And we will be back here on Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern time. We'll be talking with my good friend Monique Parent. She'll be here at 5 p.m. and we'll be talking all sorts of things, including cats, always cats. But we got a lot of. She's been a really good friend of mine for almost, damn, I think I want to say about 20 years now. And so it'll be a really good time. It'll be the first time I've ever interviewed her, and I'm looking forward to that. All right. Kenyon, stay right where you're at. I'm going to say goodnight to the chat one more time, and then you and I will talk off camera for a second, and away we go. Have a great day, everybody, or great night. Peace.